Wow, Nero, we made it! We made it to another world! Isn't this place so magical and wonderful?
Holy crap, it's like the purge out here.
It's anarchy, baby! It's like Vietnam after the US pulled out.
What? Tune into ToonGrin. Hey, Toonies, I'm WHYBOY and this is Nero.
I really hate watching crap.
Well, Nero, we already talked about some grandiose, introspective, and just plain hilarious isekai, so of course, we gotta name some terrible ones too.
Right, we did the good, so it only seems logical that we gotta do the bad, and in this case, we're gonna be covering it all. The boring, the inane, the mundane, this...
And after a while, once the two of you have grown close to one another, that's when you let them have it with the chloroform.
What the f...
So sit back, relax, and prepare to question how we got here with isekai as we give you the top 10 worst isekai. So I'm a spider, so what? Have you ever had a meal and one portion was so mouth-wateringly good and the rest gave you food poisoning? That's this series. I'm a Spider opens with a mystery where a Japanese high school class is bombed in a magical explosion where the entire class is isekai'd. But while the rest of the class are reincarnated elsewhere, one student, nicknamed Kamako, finds itself reincarnated as a lowly spider at the bottom of the world's most dangerous dungeon. This is where the show is interesting. You have this bubbly, hyperactive girl placed into the body of a spider, isolated in the lower stratas of a dungeon where she is forced to survive the harshest conditions, be it fighting a powerful monster, the terrain, or hunting heroes. It's a perfect underdog story as the viewer roots for her to succeed as she struggles with them with her quirky wits. Where does it fail? Why, everywhere else, of course, in this convoluted dumpster fire of multiple timelines, bizarre plot revelations with a must stop the impending war with a demon lord, maybe, making Spider's story incohesive and intrusive within its own story. But unlike Komako, who has a strong, dynamic personality, the classmates who we focus on don't. And that's putting it mildly. Some are comically evil, forgettable, gender swap for no narrative purpose, idiots, and one is named Schlane.
See that guy? Apparently he's Schlane Sagan Unalight, a prince of this country.
I heard he was some kind of prodigy.
Wow, what an unfortunate name, Schlong. Disconnect is the prime issue here. Being in this 2D CG hodgepodge animation that looks the 15-year time skip that makes an otherwise simple story impossible to follow, and the plot revelations that are genuinely Komako is still there, and she does get some pretty badass and hilarious moments throughout the entire series, but she's the only silver lining in a show filled with so much melodramatic nonsense that at least you're just asking, why am I doing this?
I sense that he has the same frailty as I do.
Kakuriyo, bed and breakfast for spirits. Look, you might be getting some Spirited Away vibes from this one, but I assure you, Ghibli, this is not. Bed and Breakfast follows Ayoi Tsubaki, who is, as a little girl, has a gift allowing her to see Ayakashi, or just, Japanese folklore creatures. Your Kappas, your Agumans, your Pikamachus, that kind of stuff. Tsubaki then grows up, and would you know it, her life changes when she's out walking past a shrine and spots a hungry yokai. Tsubaki gives food to the Oni Odana, innkeeper of the bathhouse Tenjin-ya, and is taken to the Hidden Realm, which is basically Yokai Wonderland, so she can marry her kidnapper. Gross. And all this because her grandpa sold her to marry the Oni to pay off his debt. Don't worry, he's a good guy. Maybe. Telling your granddaughter might be upsetting to some. But don't worry, she also just kind of easily accepts it, without any choice in the matter, but agrees to work off her grandpa's debt at the bathhouse to avoid her indentured marriage, servitude, role as emergency food ration.
You'd taste like a delicacy, so you're special. You're dear to me, so I cannot eat you. Thus you're forbidden and tempting, which makes me want to eat you even more, but I cannot do it. It's said that this dilemma can be the most exhilarating pleasure of them all.
Then you could basically just sum up the whole series with,
He emotionally abuses me and threatens to eat my flesh, but I could change him.
the plot doesn't really even follow through after that setup. Instead, it's just tangents with dull, lifeless misadventures with bed and breakfast fantastic creatures who are just nondescript looking humans and might on occasion will look like a yokai. Seriously, this is a spider yokai, this is a fox yokai, and this is a raccoon yokai. And they just look like people. What's even the point of going to a fantastic world and making it look so mundane. It's Spirited Away, duct taped to Beauty and the Beast. 2019 edition. Such wonder and adventure to explore in what looks like a typical run-of-the-mill bathhouse. Nothing says wonder like mediocrity. What a discovery!
The land is pure. Indeed, pure.
In another world with my smartphone. Now, Isekai and harem anime go hand in hand, like a teenager and his smartphone. Poor segue to Toya Mochizuki, a guy who was accidentally killed by God. Oops a doops. But to make amends, God resurrects Toya in another stock fantasy world, and as a bonus, gives him a smartphone. Ah, that's dope. And it's been modified into a literal god tech that can do basically anything the plot needs. GPS, data collection, OP magic, and more. Plus, Toya gets a boost increasing his physical, magical, and mental strength because God felt super duper guilty. Which kinda leads to why this anime really sucks. God accidentally kills him and Toya is just indifferent. And it translates to his indifferent adventures in the other world, befriending many ladies and 1%ers alike, and being pretty Mary Sue-ish. Hashtag blessed. Literally. He's also boring. Toya is the prime example of a charmless isekai self-insert hero who hardly ever struggles to resolve dilemmas and acts with the composure of cardboard. And that hardly seems a fair comparison. Cardboard's practical. Look, it's not that the series needs to be melancholy or beat Toya down to be engaging, but this anime throws obstacles at Toya and he barely needs to do anything to resolve it. He cures blindness in 2 minutes after it's brought up, solves an attempted assassination after walking into a room, and defeats an enemy army by tapping on his phone. Finally, I always knew Raid Shadow Legends had practical war applications. Basically, Toya's a poor man's Kirito from Sword Art Online. His harem is just ho-hum one-word tropes. The setting is equally unimpressive default medieval world. The only thing to be said about smartphone is that it very much is like an actual smartphone, meaning the series is best left lost and forgotten in the seat cushions of other better isekai.
Then come at me, bro!
Kemono Michi, Animal Path. Vampires, beastmen, pro wrestling. The premise for Kemono Michi is a fun idea. And that's about as far as it got. The premise is that Genzo Shibata is a pro wrestler who on the night of the World Championship match is spirited away to a fantasy realm by a princess who seeks his help to free her kingdom from some evil beasts. Genzo, however, adores animals, so he just straight up suplexes the princess. Hashtag suplex the rich. Now alone in a strange world, Genzo is gonna need some income if he's gonna survive. And after meeting a wolf girl named Shiguri, the two join up at the local guild and become beast hunters. However, Genzo's goal is to befriend and capture as many beasts as he can to realize his true dream: becoming a pet shop owner. Look, at first I know it sounds nuts, but the premise is rich with comedic possibility. And then it just gets creepy. Genzo's enjoyment of animals becomes very off-putting very quickly, especially when he just starts groping the sentient ones.
There's a good boy. Doesn't that feel nice?
On top of that, Kemono Michi pushes for a comedic quartet setup, kind of like Konosuba, where you have just a gaggle of idiots going on misadventures. So the goal is to have the comedy come from their personalities and how they play off of one another. But we just found Genzo and the girls too flat to keep our attention for very long. Genzo likes animals and disregards everyone else. Shiguri is greedy, Hanako is gluttonous, Carmilla hates Genzo and fights for her master's affection, and got big boobs. Which is great, I guess, but I'm an ass man. After finished watching Animal Path, we started to wonder if there was anything we even liked. I guess some of the dubbing choices are alright. This orc chieftain sounding like an average dude is strangely hilarious, but it might be unintentional.
Hello, I'm the one in charge here. Do you have something you would like to say to me, human?
And if an orc sounding like an average guy, possibly unintentionally, is the highlight of this show, then maybe Kemono Michi is anything but a knockout.
Wrestling pun.
Why? I want to read!
Ascendance of a Bookworm. I'm upset that this anime was a letdown in the end. The premise is fine. A book-loving woman who landed her dream job as a librarian is one day crushed to death by a pile of books. Ironic. As she dies, she wishes with all of her heart to be reincarnated in a world where she can read books forever. And the universe flips her the bird as she wakes up in the body of a terminally ill 5-year-old girl named Mine, where in this world the books she loves so much are scarce, and only available to those wealthy nobles of society. So the universe really screwed this girl over. Yet the takeaway from all this is Mai decides if she can't buy books, she will make them herself. Now this sounds like a little Dr. Stone-ish, where you have a brilliant if somewhat frail protagonist use their encyclopedic knowledge of the old world to reverse engineer items for the new world. We were on board for this. Seeing the process of making paper, writing it out, having Mine overcome her sickness, breaking the language barrier, use her intellect to make business relationships, and even deal with some fallout of Mine's friends realizing Mine is gone, and this girl has taken her place. That's all interesting stuff. Then it pivots into generic upper classes evil plot, and now it's not. It hits all the tropes. The wealthy mistreat the lower class, use them as expendable foot soldiers, some wealthy aren't so bad, but many still are, the church is corrupt, etc, etc, etc. What started as an interesting premise devolved into a basic plot of corruption and some quasi-subplot about gods. We dropped Bookworm pretty quickly after that revelation, as we felt really let down. I guess it's like the old saying goes, you can judge a book by its cover. Wait. No, I'm right.
Lick it.
Lick it?
Blood Lad. You remember that bed and breakfast anime I brought up? Yeah, Blood Lad feels like a knockoff of that. And it's not even in premise, but in execution. You get a story about a Japanese high school girl named Fuyumi who comes to the demon world, where she befriends Stats Blood, a vampire who is also a hardcore otaku. For Blood, Fuyumi is the golden ticket to the magical world of Japan, because Blood's a floppin' weeb, and possibly have Fuyumi be his first human meal. Unfortunately for Blood, Fuyumi's devoured by a demon plant, becoming a ghost, which means the weebpire here has to go on a quest to bring her back to life. Along the way, they meet some shonen tropes, and shonen tropes vaguely occur, and it all goes shonen nowhere. It's all shonen and don't tell. The real weakness is that Blood Lad is a trail mix bag of ideas. It's horror, comedy, satire, romance, ecchi, while being none of these things, as it doesn't commit to anything. At any time, the elements overlap, so the comedy undercuts the drama, or the eroticism crops up and throws off the tone. It might start off funny at first, but then it meanders quickly into apathy, which is emphasized by the sleepy and disinterested voice dub where characters sound apathetic just being alive. If I had a nickel for every time I saw an isekai where the male lead wanted to devour his female love interest, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, right?
That's when you let them have it with a chloroform.
High school prodigies have it easy even in another world. What a fun, goofy title. 7 practically perfect prodigies come into a nondescript generic fantasy world to bring with them modern understandings of democracy, technology, and commerce. Seems like this will be a fun, gallivanting time. And then it wasn't. The words to describe this show, kids, are tone deaf. Now, with the title of High School Prodigies Have It Easy Even in Another World, it's apparent right from the gate, physical obstacles aren't going to be a focus here. The focus will be on the procedure of how these prodigies will improve this medieval world and the economical obstacles to overcome. And with the intro music, you'd think we'd be doing that with an overly quirky, energy-filled comedy.
I will transform weak minds that hurt others into healthy ones that support those around them. It will take time to build this utopia, but in doing so, I will eventually create a world where everyone is free of human deficiencies.
Thank you, guys!
Tone deaf. And that sort of heartwarming writing is maybe 5% of the anime, specifically with Anime Richie Rich's episode, as that was when it was the most cut and dry engaging. Every other moment, Prodigy struggles to balance lighthearted feel-good with war-torn political struggles, uncomfortable assault scenes, multiple amounts of ecchi fan service, and not giving most of the prodigies a chance to earn their keep, build personalities, or rapport with one another. Why do they set up the magician as their god, and the people won over by offering mayonnaise? These high school prodigies may have it easy in another world, but it was not an easy watch.
My slow, relaxing life will be over!
I've been killing slimes for 300 years and have maxed out my level. These titles are terrible. You know, one of the hardest part about making these list videos is that you end up sounding repetitive. And when you got killing slimes for 300 years, well, there you go. Azusa Aizawa is an office worker who literally works herself to death, that's not really funny, and is reincarnated in a nondescript generic fantasy world as an immortal witch. But since Aizawa overworked herself to death last time, she's gonna be taking it easy in this life. And you know what? that's a fine premise. She wants to live life casually, so she builds herself a farm, hunts slimes every day to pass the time, and even earns a modest income. However, Azusa ruins her casual life when she discovers that killing slimes every day maxed out her levels, making her the most powerful being in the world. Again, fun premise. But then word gets out, and her carefree life is destroyed by being interrupted by challengers nonstop, and then along the way she collects a gaggle of girls similar to a harem. But this one isn't sexual, you pervs. Honestly, this isn't a particularly bad idea. It's actually very similar to another isekai that we both loved called Kuma 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 Bear. The premise isn't actually too dissimilar. Nice hardworking girl gets isekai'd, is overpowered, makes friends along the way. Wholesome fun is to be had. But this show just comes off so bland. 300 Years doesn't really engage when anything happens. Oh look, a dragon attacks, friend. Oh look, slimes seeking revenge for their slain family, friend. Big booby elf, friend. It's not even that it's bad, it's just so inoffensive. It's like a piece of toast. On its own, 300 Years is fine, but sometimes you want to add some butter or jam. Just add something to the toast. Just something.
Wait, they think we are ugly?
The Hollow. Have you ever been engaged in a story about someone on an epic journey? Facing all sorts of struggles, strife, and finally they succeed in reaching the end, only to be clipped by a truck? That's The Hollow. You have 3 teenagers that wake up in a room with no memories of who they are, except for a piece of paper with their names, Adam, Kai, and Mira. After escaping the room, the trio discovered they must battle monsters and traverse strange lands, and discovered they each been gifted superpowers. Super strength, pyrokinesis, and communing with animals. Using their powers and being guided by a purple-skinned weirdo named Weirdy, this trinity must unravel the mysteries of the land and find their way home. From that premise alone, there's so much intrigue. Where do the kids come from? The amnesia angle, their powers, the bizarre monsters and people they meet, and the world they travel to by portals. All this creates a journey that could be engaging as hell. Albeit it struggles with some obnoxious character writing, but it could be engaging. But the series sprinkles in brief clues as to what the reveal will be by the end of the series, and then the Hollow unravels with an explanation that is outrageously simple. It's a video game. The different worlds, video game levels, the superpowers, power-ups, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, NPCs, other people, other players in the game who also had amnesia, which result in the 2 groups of kids fighting each other in a bloodthirsty way, nearly killing each other in the process. The simple nature of the reveal and how it just sort of wipes away all explanation just robs the show of the world's intrigue, and leaves us needing the characters to pick up the slack. And because Kai exists, that ain't happening. The show is aptly named, as it's just hollow.
Okay. You can call me a beater.
Ew, what do they call the best players? Master beaters? Sword Art Online. So I've been told that SAO is like the grandpappy to modern isekai. It's not the progenitor of the genre, but it's seen as a major contributor that pushed the isekai genre higher into popular culture and influenced a lot of other isekai in the wake of its success, making it rather famous. It's also rather infamous for being a dumpster fire of anime tropes that multiple folks tear apart. WHYBOY sat me down to watch the first arc, the Aincrad arc. And let me tell ya, I don't think it's very good. I really gotta ask, why is Sword Art Online one of the most dull and unimaginative shows in the genre? You'd think an isekai that is also a death game would be an interesting combination. And it's not! Folks are trapped in the digital world of Sword Art Online by the game's creator. Some people are killing each other, some have resigned themselves to their fate, and others are working to survive, including the player we follow named Kirito. He works his way through the levels, getting OP, getting melodramatic, getting ladies, all so that he can beat SAO and free everyone. Which, to my confusion, is that after he defeats SAO, he goes into yet another video game, and then another, and another? You'd think after the first time he'd swear off video games entirely and go full Amish. Kirito does all the typical power fantasy isekai tropes. He gets in adventures, gets a sword, gets a harem, gets another sword, makes friends, loses friends, tells other friends about it who then commit suicide right in front of him.
Oh no. He's dead now.
See, I think the biggest weakness isn't the design, story, acting, or animation, which is all blandly average. It's falling down an infinite stairwell of low expectations. It's CW soap opera the anime. It exists to be an IP to be mined. Now, sometimes in the briefest of moments, something good can exist, like when they do the murder mystery, arguably where it's the most interesting. And sometimes you can have poorly choreographed tragedy, where the rules of the game apply only when it's the most tragic. Now, of course, there are people who may enjoy the show, and they may even defend it and say to me, "Nero, it does get better after X number of episodes." Don't come at me with the "it gets good after a nondescript amount of time." That is not a praise for a show. That is a damnation for a show. Watching a story unfold, getting to like characters, is a time investment. And it doesn't really need or should have to get really good. It's fine for things to develop, but it needs to be good in order for you to want to invest in it. The only positive for Sword Art Online is you can see that it inspired a lot of successors. Be it the annoying degree of how video game mechanics are injected into a lot of isekai, almost to the point of where it's becoming sort of a default thing and it's getting kind of annoying, or the added benefit of blending genres together. And that's the beauty of it. Isekai is so perfectly base as a genre because you can mix anything into it. It's like vanilla ice cream, and vanilla ice cream is pretty yummy. But sometimes you want to mix some things in there. Maybe some nuts or some hot fudge, but not sprinkles, because that's the devil's topping, which is what melodrama is in Sword Art Online. It's sprinkles, vanilla ice cream covered in sprinkles, and that's just gross.
So that was 10 of the worst isekai, but don't worry, there's so much more isekai out there. A lot more.
Maybe you've seen one we didn't mention, so let us know some of the worst isekai you've seen in the comments with the hashtag ToonGrin10. Let's see how weird, boring, and outrageous this genre can get.
Until then, we'll see you next time, maybe in another world.
Is that Truck Coon?